You ever see one of those huge, high-profile government projects or a new public app get launched with all this fanfare, only for it to, quietly disappear or just become a spectacular failure within a year or two? Yeah, it happens way more than you'd think. And there's a very specific reason why.
Okay, so let's get right into it. Why do these massive, public-facing software projects, the ones with huge budgets and tons of attention, so often just crumble? Think about it. A new public benefits portal gets launched just in time for an election. At first, it looks great. But pretty soon, users are complaining about constant crashes, wrong information, maybe even security flaws. And then, 18 months later, it's gone. Replaced. This isn't just bad luck, There's a pattern. And that pattern has a name.
And here's the culprit. It's something called political timeline software. Now, the key phrase here is engineered for speed and optics. The main goal isn't to build something that's going to last for years. Nope, it's to build something that can be launched by a very specific, politically important date. And what about longevity and quality? Well, those tend to take a back seat.
And that brings us right to the heart of the problem, what we can call the political deadline trap. This is where it all starts. It's where the seeds of future failure are planted, right from day one.
Think of it like trying to build a skyscraper on a ridiculous deadline. What happens? Well, the architectural plans get rushed. The instructions for the next crew are just scribbled notes. You start using temporary scaffolding, just kind of hoping it holds up. These are the classic warning signs: a rushed scope, flimsy documentation, and a whole lot of "we'll fix it later" workarounds. The whole thing is being built on a foundation of sand.
So, how does that initial mad dash to the finish line actually lead to a total collapse down the road? Let's get into the forensics of it. We're going to do a little diagnosis of this digital decay and see exactly how the code starts to corrode from the inside out.
What you're looking at here is a fundamental choice. On one side, you've got your quick fixes. These are great for hitting that deadline, for sure. But what they do is create this tangled mess of code where every single piece is rigidly duct taped to another. Change one thing, and 5 other things break. On the other side, you've got robust architecture, the stuff that gets skipped for speed. A solid architecture is what allows a system to grow and adapt over time. By choosing speed, you're pretty much sacrificing the future.
And this is how you get something called technical debt. Think of it like a loan, but for bad decisions. At launch, you skip some tests. That's like putting a bucket under a small leak in your roof instead of fixing it. 6 months later, you add a new feature with a sloppy, hacked-together integration. That's like sealing a drafty window with packing tape. After a year, you've got buckets and tape everywhere. The debt is compounding, and now, a year or two later, the system is such a mess that fixing it properly is almost impossible.
And then there's the human element. The original developers, the ones who held all the secrets to how this messy thing actually works in their heads, they move on. And because everything was so rushed, the documentation is either terrible or it just doesn't exist. So the new team comes in completely blind, trying to figure out a system that has become a black box. Nobody knows exactly how it works anymore, and everyone is terrified to touch it in case it all comes crashing down.
So, what about testing? This chart tells a pretty terrifying story. I mean, just look at how little time is spent on performance tests and security scans. And a full 20% of testing is just skipped entirely. So, guess who finds all the critical bugs and all the security holes? The public. After it's already live, after the damage is already done.
Okay, so this obsession with speed comes with a massive bill. And we're not just talking about money here. The true cost is so much bigger, so much more damaging than most people even realize.
Let's start with the money, though, because wow, fixing the fundamental flaws that were baked in from the beginning doesn't just cost a little bit more. We're talking multiples of the entire original budget. You literally end up paying for the same project over and over and over again.
And this chart just lays it out so clearly. It's devastating. You see that tiny little bar on the left? That's the initial development budget that everyone was so proud of meeting. But look, it's completely dwarfed by the cost of just keeping the thing running. And then it's absolutely eclipsed by that huge bar for long-term fixes, or more likely a total rebuild. That short-term win just guarantees a massive long-term financial loss.
And beyond the budget, you've got all these other hidden costs. Your organization's reputation gets hammered when your flagship app fails. You might even face regulatory fines. You can't innovate or build new things because your best people are stuck putting out fires on the old system. All of this leads to frustrated stakeholders and, you guessed it, totally burned out employees.
Okay, I know that was a pretty grim picture, But here's the good news, it is absolutely avoidable. There's actually a clear, practical playbook for how to build things sustainably, even when you're facing one of those tough political deadlines. So here are the 5 key steps. First, treat that deadline as a boundary, not the be-all and end-all goal. Deliver what you can in that time, but have a plan for what's next. Second, and this one is absolutely crucial, budget for the cleanup work from the very beginning. Put it in the plan. Third, some things just have to be non-negotiable, like automated tests and security scans. No exceptions. Fourth, write down every single shortcut and workaround you take. And finally, plan the handover to the next team before the launch party even starts. So, after looking at the problem, the diagnosis, and the solution, what's the final bill? What's the real bottom line here? It all really comes down to this one powerful idea. Rushing software to meet political timelines is a trade. You're trading that short-term visibility, the splashy launch, the good press, for guaranteed long-term cost and massive risk. It's a bad deal every single time. So the smart play, the only sane approach really, is to be realistic. Deliver what's needed right now to meet the deadline, but do it with your eyes wide open. You have to explicitly plan, and more importantly, fund the fixes and improvements that you know are going to be needed later on. That's not admitting defeat, that's planning for actual long-term success.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. The next time you hear about a big new digital project being announced with a firm deadline, maybe the question we should all be asking isn't, when does it launch, but rather, how long is it actually built to last?